Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my channel. Have you ever loved a woman so deeply yet felt like the more you tried to prove it, the more she pulled away? You did everything right. You were kind, you gave, you stayed, you opened your heart, and somehow it wasn't enough. Her eyes stopped lighting up when you entered the room. Her tone shifted, her body was there, but her respect, her admiration seemed to vanish like smoke through your fingers. I want to talk to the man who's felt that quiet ache in his chest, the man who still shows up, strong, dependable, well-meaning, but feels invisible in his own love story. This isn't about being macho. It's not about playing games or pretending you don't care. No, this is about becoming something deeper, stronger, quieter, becoming the kind of man who doesn't chase her approval, but commands her respect, the kind of man whose emotional presence speaks louder than 1,000 desperate texts. This video is for you, the man who's tired of losing himself to win her heart. We're going to explore something ancient, timeless, Stoicism, not as a cold armor, but as a warm fire of self-possession, a discipline of love that doesn't beg but invites, that doesn't shout but resonates. If you've ever wondered what it really means to be the man she loves and never forgets, stay close. We're going somewhere deep. Have you ever stood in the doorway of your own home and felt like a stranger in it? She's in the kitchen making tea. You're in the living room, scrolling your phone. And somehow, despite being just a few feet apart, the silence between you feels like 1,000 miles. There's no fight, no drama, just a distance. A withdrawal that started subtly, missed eye contact, fewer laughs, her hands slipping out of yours too quickly. You tell yourself it's stress, work, the kids, her hormones, anything really. But deep down you feel it. She stopped looking at you like she used to. And you don't know how to fix it. Because you're already trying so damn hard. You're there. You don't cheat. You listen most of the time. You've toned down the anger. You even read that relationship book she liked. But nothing seems to click. That's where many men begin to panic. They either double down, pleasing, apologizing, bending themselves backward in hopes she'll come back, or they retreat completely, emotionally shut down, waiting for her to get over it. But what if I told you the answer is neither? You see, women don't lose respect for men because they're not emotional. They lose respect when they feel like the man no longer governs himself, when his emotions govern him, when his need for her affirmation becomes louder than his inner compass, when she stops seeing him as the rock and starts seeing him as a tide she has to manage. This is where Stoicism enters, not the cold, emotionless caricature you've been warned about, but a more sacred form of discipline, one that says I can hold space for your emotions, but I don't drown in them. I can love you deeply without losing myself in the process, because that is what wins her heart again. A woman doesn't want a puppet, she doesn't want a servant, she wants a man with roots, a man who can be still while she storms, who doesn't need to prove his worth, because his presence already says everything. So let's talk about what that actually looks like. Let's start with this. The Stoic man never chases her energy. He leads with his own. There's this common belief that to win her heart, you must understand her every emotional need and bend yourself accordingly. That love means being endlessly adaptable, flexible, and agreeable. But let me ask you something. What do you feel when someone constantly adjusts their mood to please you? When their opinions shift like sand under your feet? When you say something sharp and instead of standing in their truth, they just flinch and apologize? You feel a little less attracted, don't you? Now flip it. Imagine a man who listens, really listens, but doesn't react. He hears your frustration, but stays calm. He sees your tears, but doesn't collapse into guilt. He lets you be. All of you, but doesn't abandon himself. That energy is magnetizing because you can trust it. You know that no matter what mood you bring, he won't be swallowed by it. He's anchored. And when a woman senses that, she softens. Not because you forced her, but because your steadiness invites her to rest. So many men are stuck in reaction mode. She's cold, so I'll try harder. She's upset, so I'll fix it. She pulled back, so I'll chase her harder. And in doing so, they unintentionally hand her the power she never asked to hold. Women don't want to be emotional leaders. They don't want to steer the ship while their man flails at the sail. What they want is to feel safe, emotionally, yes, but also energetically. And that safety comes when your state isn't dictated by hers. Being stoic isn't about being indifferent. It's about being sovereign. And that's the first shift. You stop asking, how do I win her back? And you start asking, how do I lead myself so powerfully that she naturally leans in? That brings me to something else. The Stoic man chooses response over reaction. Let's say she throws a jab, something subtle, maybe a sarcastic comment, a slight roll of the eyes. That invisible blade women know how to wield with surgical precision. Your instinct might be to snap back, to correct, to demand respect in that moment. But Stoicism isn't about domination, it's about discernment. Ask yourself, what would a man rooted in his power do here? Would he retaliate to protect his ego? Or would he pause, breathe, and ask himself, is this really about me? Or is she trying to be heard in the only way she knows how right now? Sometimes the most masculine thing you can do is nothing. Just witness. Let the moment pass through you without clinging to it, without needing to control it, without giving your peace away. Because here's the truth women test, not always consciously, but energetically, emotionally. They test, not because they want you to fail, but because they're looking for your center. They want to know you have won, that it exists, that it's unshakable. It's not about passing some manipulative game. It's about proving, not to her, but to yourself, that your emotions are no longer at the mercy of the external. You don't get pulled into storms anymore. You are the storm, or more accurately, the eye of it. She says something passive-aggressive. You respond with kindness, but not weakness. She pulls away. You don't chase, you give space, but not silence. She doubts you. You don't convince, you be. And this is where she begins to feel the shift. Not because you said the perfect thing, but because she senses something more powerful, something she can lean into. That's when the attraction deepens. Not the surface-level chemistry, not the we laugh at the same jokes vibe, but that ancient polarity that has pulled men and women toward each other since the beginning of time. You're not begging for her love. You're becoming the man she respects enough to offer it freely. And that, my friend, is everything. It's not about having all the answers. It's about cultivating the presence that makes her trust your silence just as much as your words. It's not about fixing her emotions. It's about holding yours so powerfully that she feels safer in hers. And it's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent in your energy, your direction, your boundaries. Because a Stoic man isn't boring, he's captivating, and not because he performs, but because he embodies something rare, certainty without arrogance, warmth without neediness, love without losing himself. Now let's go deeper. So here we are. You're starting to feel it, aren't you? That slight shift not in her, but in you. And that's the point, because the moment a man begins to realign with himself, the world around him, his relationships, his environment, even his woman, responds to that recalibration. Let's talk now about one of the most misunderstood truths when it comes to winning her heart and earning her respect. The Stoic man speaks less to impress her and more to express his truth. In a world full of noise, where everyone is trying to be heard, validated, seen, it is rare and powerful to meet someone who pauses before they speak, who doesn't fill every silence with words, who listens not to respond but to understand. Women are drawn to words, yes, but not to quantity, to quality. A man who rushes to speak, who explains, defends, over-communicates, is often secretly terrified of being misunderstood. And when that fear rules the conversation, she doesn't hear your heart. She hears your anxiety. Now think of the opposite. A man who chooses his words like he chooses his battles, with patience, precision, and presence. He doesn't speak to convince you of anything. He speaks because he's already convinced. He speaks from clarity, not confusion. That kind of man disarms her. Because when a woman feels your presence more than she hears your persuasion, she leans in. She listens differently. She feels safer, not because you said what she wanted to hear, but because you didn't say anything you didn't mean. And that's something most women long for, not a man who says the right thing, a man who means everything he says. Now, this doesn't mean you go silent. It doesn't mean you suppress. It means you express from your center, not your wounds. You tell her what you feel, yes, but without the blame, without the theatrics, without the desire to change her. You simply let your truth stand on its own, like a tree in a storm. I didn't like how that felt. I don't chase affection. I welcome it. I'd love to talk when you're ready to speak from love, not anger. Simple, calm, clear. And here's the paradox. The less you try to be perfect with your words, the more she trusts what you say, because your truth doesn't need a performance. It just needs to be real. Now let's move into something even more subtle. Something I believe every man must understand if he truly wants to earn her lasting respect. The Stoic man is deeply emotional, but not emotionally dependent. Let me be honest with you. Many men think they're being stoic by shutting down, by detaching, by suppressing their pain until it numbs them out of their own lives. They think Stoicism means you can't feel anything. That vulnerability is weakness. But that's not Stoicism. That's avoidance. Real Stoicism is emotional mastery, not emotional denial. You feel everything. You just don't let it command you. You let it move through you, not control you. And most importantly, you don't outsource your emotional regulation to her. This is where so many relationships break. The man relies on her moods to define his worth. Her affection becomes his validation. Her silence becomes his shame. Her attention becomes his medicine. And suddenly, the man is no longer sovereign. He's emotionally dependent. That kind of pressure breaks her spirit, because instead of holding her with your strength, you hand her the burden of holding you. Your confidence, your happiness, your sense of masculinity. She can love you deeply, but she cannot carry what you refuse to hold yourself. And if she's an emotionally intelligent woman, she will eventually withdraw, not because she's cruel, but because the connection begins to feel like emotional labor. So what do you do instead? You become emotionally self-led. You give yourself the affirmation you seek. You sit with your loneliness before you demand her presence. You breathe through your anger before you speak. You meet your inner boy with compassion, so your woman doesn't have to become his mother. This is where respect is born. Not in how much you feel, but in how responsibly you feel it. She will still want to nurture you. She will still want to hold space. But it won't feel like parenting. It will feel like partnership. And that distinction changes everything. Because now she's not loving you out of guilt. She's loving you out of admiration. That brings me to one of the most beautiful, rare, magnetic qualities in a Stoic man. He protects his peace. And by doing so, protects the relationship. Let's talk boundaries. Not the kind that come from ego walls, ultimatums, manipulation. But the quiet boundaries of a man who knows his worth and guards it without apology. You know what that looks like? It's the man who doesn't raise his voice when provoked, who doesn't explain his choices to people who don't respect them, who doesn't compromise his integrity for temporary affection, and yes, who's willing to walk away if the relationship requires him to betray himself in order to keep it. That kind of man is rare because he values connection, but not at the cost of his center. He knows that intimacy without boundaries is not love, it's entanglement, and that chaos is not passion, it's a cry for leadership, one he's no longer willing to answer with his silence. When a man protects his peace, he becomes a sanctuary, not just for himself but for her. She feels it in the way he moves through the day, in the way he doesn't react to drama, in the way he sets the tone, not just in the bedroom but in the very atmosphere of their shared space. He is the thermostat, not the thermometer. He doesn't measure the emotional temperature, he sets it. And when she realizes this, she begins to relax in a way she forgot was possible. Her nervous system slows, her tone softens, her feminine opens, not because he demanded it, but because he modeled it. This is what it means to lead in love, not with dominance, with direction, not with control, with consistency, not with charm, with character. And here's something else I need you to hear, not just understand, but feel in your bones. You don't earn a woman's respect by being who you think she wants. You earn it by becoming the man you admire and letting her witness it. When a man moves from this place, deep, grounded, whole, he stops trying to be impressive and becomes irresistible because he's no longer seeking her love to fill a hole. He's offering it from a well. He's no longer proving he's worthy. He knows he is. And in that knowing, she finds a man she can trust, not just with her body, but with her truth, her chaos, her future. Because he's not just loving her, he's leading her by leading himself. By now, you might be feeling something stir within you, a realization, a return, not to some new performance, but to something ancient and deeply familiar, a steadiness that was always yours, a quiet fire you've forgotten how to tend. So let's walk into one of the most powerful and perhaps the most misunderstood truth of all. The Stoic man is not afraid of intimacy. He simply doesn't perform for it. There's this narrative out there that Stoic men are cold, distant, unavailable. But that's not true. The real Stoic man, the grounded, emotionally anchored man, is not emotionally distant. He's selectively available. He doesn't offer vulnerability for validation. He offers it from fullness. You see, a lot of men confuse intimacy with intensity. They confuse chaos with chemistry. They think if the conversation isn't fiery, if the emotions aren't high, if the passion isn't dripping from every touch, something must be wrong. But what if I told you that peace can be erotic? That a man who's not addicted to emotional drama creates the deepest intimacy of all? Because now she's not reacting to your instability. She's responding to your stillness. And in that stillness, something new opens. A space where trust can grow, where secrets can breathe, where love becomes safe, not suffocating. A Stoic man creates this space by mastering one vital trait: emotional integrity. He doesn't pretend he's fine when he's not. He doesn't say, "I'm okay," when he's angry. He doesn't withdraw for days and call it calm. He feels fully. He's aware of what moves through him. But, and this is the key, he does the work of understanding it before projecting it. She snaps, he doesn't retaliate, he reflects. He's triggered, he doesn't lash out, he investigates. He's tempted to withdraw, he stays curious, present, soft in the face of conflict, but not submissive. This kind of man becomes unforgettable, not because of his words, but because of his presence. And she knows it. She feels it in her bones. Because when a man shows up like this, fully embodied, emotionally fluent, sovereign, he becomes someone she doesn't have to manage. She doesn't have to decode. She doesn't have to beg to show up. She respects him, not because he demanded it, but because he earned it by being a refuge in a world full of emotional volatility. Now let me bring you into a hard truth. One you might not want to hear, but need to. Sometimes, being a Stoic man means walking away from the woman you love when staying would mean abandoning yourself. It means holding the line on your non-negotiables. It means saying, "I love you, but I love myself too much to shrink for this connection." This is the moment that separates the boys from the men. Because boys chase affection at any cost. Men honor their integrity at every cost. And sometimes that means enduring the pain of letting go of a woman who doesn't yet recognize the value of a man like you. But let me say this clearly. A Stoic man doesn't fear being alone because he's no longer alone with himself. He doesn't avoid stillness because his inner world has become a place of power. He doesn't seek a relationship to fix his wounds because he's already tending to them. And because of that, when love finds him, it's real, it's equal. It's a dance between two whole beings, not a rescue mission. That's the kind of love that lasts. That's the kind of love that burns slow and never burns out. So where does that leave you? It leaves you with a choice, not a one-time dramatic decision, but a daily quiet one. Will you lead yourself today? Will you speak less to impress and more to express? Will you feel deeply, but carry your feelings with dignity? Will you hold space for her emotions without being consumed by them? Will you be the man who doesn't chase, doesn't collapse, doesn't control, but simply becomes so grounded in himself that love begins to orbit around his presence? Because that is what she's craving. And she may not say it out loud. She may not even know how to articulate it. But her soul is watching. She's watching how you handle pressure, how you hold your boundaries, how you speak to yourself in the mirror. She's watching how you walk into the room, your tone, your breath, your stillness. She doesn't need a perfect man. She needs a present one. And you don't need to become someone else. You need to remember who you were before the world taught you to please, to chase, to perform. Underneath it all, you've always been enough. Not because you gave more, but because you stood firm. Not because you were loud, but because you were true. And so, my dear friend, here's what I want to leave you with. A woman's heart is not one with desperation. It's earned through devotion to yourself, to your peace, to your truth. And when she sees a man who leads with quiet confidence, who commands with kindness, who protects not just her, but the container that holds the relationship, she falls. Not because she has to, but because she wants to. You're not here to impress her, you're here to inspire her. You're not here to fix her, you're here to hold her. And you're not here to be loved for what you can do. You're here to be loved for who you choose to become. So choose to become the man you respect, and let love follow. If this spoke to you, if something inside you whispered, "This is me," then let's keep the conversation alive. Drop a comment below. Share what this stirred in you. Share your story, your truth, your turning point. Because this isn't just about a relationship. It's about your return to yourself. If you found value here, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who's ready to rise. You deserve love that honors your soul. You deserve peace that doesn't need to be earned. And you deserve to be the man she can't forget. Here's to becoming him. There is something magnetic, undeniable, about a man who doesn't rush to be seen. He walks into a room, not to take it over, but to inhabit it. Not loud, not flashy, but deeply present. He speaks only when the words are worth offering. And when he listens, he does so with his entire being. His attention doesn't waver. His energy doesn't scatter. And when he touches you, you feel like you're the only person who exists in that moment. That is presence. And it's one of the most attractive traits a man can ever cultivate. Presence doesn't need validation. It doesn't chase attention. It doesn't rush the moment. It anchors it. But the question most men don't ask is, how do I become more present? And the answer is deceptively simple. You slow down, you breathe, you observe without reacting. You learn to sit with tension without needing to fix it. Because real presence is not about what you say or do. It's about how deeply you're connected to this moment, this body, this breath, and how safe others feel in your awareness. Women pick up on this instinctively. They may not always be able to articulate it, but they feel it in their nervous system. The man who is present doesn't rush to interrupt. He doesn't check his phone mid-conversation. He doesn't lose eye contact when things get uncomfortable. He stays, he holds, he remains. And this is why presence is more than attention. It's devotion to the moment, to the woman, to your own truth. Let me tell you this, you can be the most successful, wealthy, well-dressed man in the room, but if you can't be present with her emotions, her voice, her body, she won't feel safe to open to you. Not sexually, not emotionally, not spiritually. Presence is what gives her permission to exhale, to rest, to surrender. Because in your stillness, she finally feels free to flow. Now let's talk about another layer of masculine energy that is often forgotten. Trust, but not just in her. In yourself. You see, a woman cannot give you the trust you won't give yourself. And here's what I mean by that. A man who second guesses everything he says. A man who fears her rejection more than he values his truth. A man who constantly needs her reassurance to feel okay in his own skin is not trustworthy to himself. And when you don't trust your own voice, your own gut, your own decisions, she can't trust you either. Because feminine energy, whether in a woman or in the world, is constantly testing for safety. It's asking, can I let go with you? Can I soften in your arms? Can I trust that you'll hold what I give you? And if you don't trust your ability to hold yourself, your feelings, your pain, your desires, then how can she? So let's be honest here. Many men want the kind of woman who can surrender into love. But are you the kind of man she can surrender to? Not in dominance, not in control, in trust. Do you speak with clarity, or do you second guess everything to avoid upsetting her? Do you ask questions with presence, or do you probe because you're afraid of the answer? Do you own your boundaries with calm, or do you set them with resentment and silence? Because the man who trusts himself doesn't beg for peace, he creates it. He doesn't demand loyalty, he inspires it. He doesn't control her freedom, he holds space for it without losing his own. This is the silent dance between the masculine and feminine, between containment and flow, between direction and surrender, and it begins not with her but with you. It's in how you hold the tension in the space between her silence and your response. It's in how you carry yourself when you're unsure, but still grounded. It's in the way you don't rush to fix her feelings, but instead invite her into the space you've mastered within yourself. Now let's bring this down to something even more tangible. The Stoic man doesn't avoid intimacy, he deepens it through restraint, not urgency. What do I mean by that? I mean the man who doesn't rush to get the kiss. He savors the moment before it happens. The man who doesn't jump in to solve her vulnerability. He simply says, I hear you. The man who doesn't rush to say, I love you, to get it back. He says it when his heart speaks it, and lets it land. That's intimacy. That's seduction. That's presence with power. A woman's heart is never won through pressure or performance. It's earned in the spaces where she gets to feel you fully, without being asked to fix you, lead you, or fill you. And that is when she begins to trust you, not just as a lover, but as a man, a pillar, a place where her wildness can come alive and not be punished for it. A place where her depth doesn't scare you, where her tears don't define you, where her trust isn't earned with tricks, but with truth. This is what we forget in modern love. We chase attraction when what we really crave is devotion. We master seduction when what we really long for is stillness. And the irony, when you become that Stoic man, not cold, but deeply rooted, deeply present, deeply true, she becomes more attracted, not less. She respects you because you finally respect yourself. And no technique, no book, no clever text can substitute for that kind of inner gravity. So, we return to where we began. You don't need to be more charming, you need to be more you. Not the performative you, not the polished, perfect, socially acceptable version of you, the quiet, rooted, deeply embodied man who breathes before he reacts, who loves without losing his edge, who listens without losing his truth, and who walks into a room not needing to be the center, because he already is his own center. Now we're almost there. Let's bring everything home. There's a moment in every man's life when he stops asking, how can I get her to love me? And starts asking, how can I become a man I don't abandon? That moment changes everything, because something deep inside shifts. You stop chasing women and you start leading yourself. You stop craving respect and you begin to embody it. And in that shift, you unlock something ancient. Not in the loudness of your voice, not in the sharpness of your intellect, but in the quiet authority that lives in your bones. The kind of authority that doesn't try to impress her because it no longer needs to. It invites, it holds, it endures. That's the journey we've been on together. One that moves you out of emotional chaos and into relational clarity. One that doesn't silence your heart, but teaches you to hold it with strength. One that doesn't abandon your needs, but teaches you to meet them first, so that love becomes an offering, not a negotiation. And this is the final transformation of the Stoic man. He becomes deeply alive. Not stoic in the hardened, armored, emotionally distant sense, but stoic in the way of the ancient river, flowing, strong, unpredictable yet contained, wild yet always knowing its path. This man doesn't just attract a woman, he awakens her, not through seduction, but through stillness, not through performance, but through presence, not through pressure, but through depth. She feels it in the way he touches her, like a man who honors what he desires but is never ruled by it. She hears it in the way he speaks, no fluff, no performance, just truth wrapped in clarity. She sees it in the way he walks away when his values are compromised, not to punish, but to protect what he has built within. She senses it in the way he doesn't beg her to be feminine, but invites it through the way he grounds his own masculine. And in return, she gives something sacred. Not just her love, her admiration, her devotion, her respect, because women do not fall for perfection. They fall for a man who is real, who has scars but wears them with grace, who can hold her fire without losing his flame. And in the sacred space between her flow and your form, love becomes not just something you chase, but something you build together. But only because you first built it within. So if you're watching this, and part of you is wondering, can I really be that man? The answer is yes, but not through trying harder, not through becoming someone else, through returning to who you were before the world told you to shut down your feelings. To who you were before rejection made you fearful, to who you were before heartbreak made you silent. That young boy who felt deeply, who asked questions, who spoke with sincerity, he's still in there. But now you meet him with your wisdom. You tell him, we don't have to beg for love anymore. We don't have to lose ourselves to keep someone. We don't need to be louder. We just need to be clearer. And together you walk forward. You become the man who can hold your pain without blaming her. You become the man who can witness her fire without making it about you. You become the man who can be with her fully without disappearing into her. And in doing so, you stop needing her to see your worth, because your life already reflects it. Your posture, your choices, your relationships, your boundaries, your breath, all of it begins to speak for you. And that, my dear friend, is the most powerful kind of stoicism. It's not the absence of feeling, it's the mastery of how those feelings move through you without breaking the vessel that holds them. So as we close, I want to say this from my heart to yours. She will respect you not because you made her feel something, but because you made her feel safe. She will open to you not because you solved her emotions, but because you held space for them without losing yours. She will love you deeply not because you performed perfectly, but because you finally stopped performing altogether. Because you came home to yourself. And when a man comes home to himself, he becomes the man every woman remembers. Not because of how loud he was, but because of how deeply he listened. To her, to life, to himself. So go live from that place. Let your silence speak. Let your presence invite. Let your integrity lead. And let love find you not as someone desperate to receive it, but as someone finally worthy to carry it. Because you are. And she'll know it the moment she meets your gaze. Not the gaze that demands her attention. The gaze that already knows he doesn't need it to be whole. That is who you are. That is who you've always been. Now go be him.